Over breakfast, Mom declared, "Your sister's twins need your room. They need more space to grow." When I tried to speak, Dad slammed his glass and said, "Either agree or leave this house." I stayed quiet. A week later, I bought the house next door, watched them struggle, and cheerfully said, "Good morning," every day. Picture this for a moment, if you will. What if the people you believed loved you most, the very bedrock of your existence, your family, suddenly, unceremoniously told you to vanish? Not just from their presence, but from your own childhood bedroom, a space you still occasionally retreated to after late shifts, a sanctuary. All because your sister, the family's golden child, the sun around which all planets revolved, needed more space for her miracle twins. That, my friends, is precisely how my blood, my own family, assigned my worth. And believe me, the betrayal wasn't just a cut. It was a deep, festering gash. My name is Christopher. I'm 31, and for most of my life, I've been the quiet son. The one who could effortlessly blend into the background, the dependable guy who remembered everyone's birthdays and appeared with the perfectly chosen cake. Because, well, that was my niche. I run a small pastry shop. People initially come for my legendary almond croissants, but they return because I remember Mrs. Patel prefers her latte extra hot, and that Mr. Corgan, despite his protests, always leaves with 6 eclairs. In my own family, however, I was merely furniture. My older sister, Sabrina, she was the star, the radiant golden child. A booming laugh, all the right friends, and now, the piece de resistance, twins. Everyone, it seemed, chipped in biologically. Me? I chipped in financially. That became my unspoken role. Chris is stable, Mom would declare, as if it were a minor miracle. He has his own business, Dad would add, as if my bakery somehow printed money in its back room. Growing up was a relentless series of these small, almost imperceptible cuts. Be a good brother. Your sister needs it more. Don't make a fuss. I learned to patch drywall, to swap out a leaky faucet, and to split a dinner check 4 ways when I was the only card that wouldn't get declined. I mastered the art of saying, "It's fine," and infusing it with enough conviction that it almost sounded true, even to myself. This particular morning, it dawned like any other. I arrived at their house at 7:40 a.m., a warm tray of cinnamon rolls cradled in my arms. Mom, bless her, despises store-bought, which is frankly hilarious coming from a woman who hasn't set foot in a grocery store since, I don't know, the Obama administration. Sabrina's twins were there, tiny bundles in matching onesies proclaiming copy and paste. I kissed their soft foreheads, trying to banish the specter of my credit card statement from my thoughts. We sat down. Dad was engrossed in the local paper, as if trapped in 1998. Sabrina, a cold, hard mirror reflecting her screen, scrolled silently through her phone. Mom poured coffee, her jaw already set in that familiar, unyielding way that spelled impending trouble. Then it came, flat and unadorned, like a weather report. "Your sister's twins will take your room." Her voice was devoid of inflection. "They need more space to grow." I blinked. My room. I still slept there sometimes. It wasn't just a place to sleep. It was my room. The walls still held the faint scent of birthday candles and lemon polish from Mom's cleaning sprees. Mom, without missing a beat, continued, "You have your shop. You practically live there. It's selfish to keep a whole room empty." I opened my mouth to protest, but Dad's glass slammed onto the table, milk sloshing everywhere. "Agree or get out of this house." The twins, startled, hiccuped. Sabrina didn't even lift her gaze from her phone. The words landed in my chest, heavy, suffocating. "Agree or get out." I swallowed, the lump in my throat a solid mass. "Okay," I whispered, my voice barely audible. The cinnamon roll I tried to chew tasted like cardboard. In my head, the sharp clink of Dad's glass on the table echoed, a broken metronome repeating endlessly. Look, I own a bakery, but that shop didn't materialize from thin air or wishful thinking. I saved for 9 grueling years. I worked 2 jobs for 5 of those years, often sleeping in a walk-in cooler when my studio apartment's AC died, knowing I had a wedding order due at 3 a.m. I understand the true cost of things. I know what I can afford, and I know the profound difference between doing a favor and receiving a bill with my name etched onto it. My family, they treated money like a group project, and somehow I was always the sole participant who bothered to study. It began subtly. Sabrina, in college, borrowed $120 for textbooks, then $350 for a traffic ticket. "You're better with fees," she'd chirped. When she was 27, she called me, sobbing, from a mall parking lot because her card was declined at Nordstrom, and she desperately needed a blazer for an interview. I drove over, and with a weary sigh, just handed the cashier my card because the line was endless, and I loathed the scene. $498.27. I remember that exact number vividly because that week I skipped lunch 3 days straight just to avoid an overdraft. My parents never inquired about the source of my funds. They simply assumed I possessed them. "You're careful," Mom would say, which translated meant, "You don't say no." Dad kept a phantom scoreboard of things we did for you, as if my mere existence accrued an unsettled tab. "Roof over your head," he'd mutter if I wasn't quick enough to jump. "Food on your plate," even if that food was typically me cooking it. When Sabrina married, I baked a 5-tier cake for free and then paid the florist's rush fee because they'd botched the order. When the twins were on the way, I was on the hook for the crib, then the second crib, then the humidifier, then the better humidifier because the first one was too loud. The registry read like a shopping list for minor royalty. At the baby shower, everyone clapped when I unveiled the croquembouche. Aunt Nora even hugged me, declaring, "Chris, you're the glue of this family." Glue. Glue is sticky. Glue holds other people's messes together until it dries and inevitably cracks. I convinced myself I didn't mind. I genuinely enjoyed being useful, being the person others could rely on. But then, the requests began to change. They grew larger, heavier. They arrived with increasingly urgent deadlines. 2 months before the twins' birth, Dad called. "No, hello. Just, Sabrina's lease is up. We're converting the den into a nursery. You'll handle the contractors." I was piping delicate raspberry buttercream onto 60 cupcakes. "Dad, I'm in the middle of," he talked right over me. "We need it done before June. Your shop is slow in spring, right? You can manage the budget." "Whose budget?" I asked, already knowing the crushing answer. "Ours," he said then, with a dry cough. "Yours? We'll pay you back when things even out." When do things ever even out? I thought but didn't say. I kept the spreadsheet. I always do, especially when I feel my control slipping away. By the week of that awful breakfast, the total I'd fronted in the past year had reached a staggering $18,542.19. I'm not rich. I am a man who sells pastries for $4.75 apiece. That number glowed on my laptop screen like a chilling warning label. Around the same time, Sabrina began leaving boxes in my old room. "Just for now," she'd say. Then a stroller appeared. Then two. Then the changing table. I navigated around them at night like a ghost, a guest in a museum of my own childhood. My old posters still clung to the walls, their edges curling like dry leaves. My soccer trophy stood crooked on the shelf, incongruously next to a bottle warmer I'd apparently paid for. The night before the breakfast, I worked late on a custom order. A cake shaped like the first book a husband and wife ever read together. It took me 4 meticulous hours to perfect the fondant. As I worked, my phone glowed with a barrage of family texts. Asterisk Mom, don't forget breakfast. 8 a.m. Sabrina, can you bring cinnamon rolls? Dad, be on time. Asterisk, I stare at the screen. No please. No thank you. Just instructions. I brushed it off because brushing things off has become a finely honed skill. I boxed the cake. I set my alarm. And I drove to the house I grew up in to sleep on a mattress half covered by diapers I'd bought. Then came the morning. The stark sentence. Your sister's twins will take your room. The glass slamming. Agree or get out. After that, Mom, as if conducting a staff meeting, began listing logistics. We'll move your boxes to the garage. They'll mold in the garage. I pointed out a sliver of defiance. Then take them to your shop. Dad snapped. You're always there. Sabrina finally glanced up from her phone. It's not personal, Chris. The babies need space. I stared at her. Where am I supposed to sleep when I close at midnight and can't drive home? She tilted her head, as if I'd just asked for a pony. You can crash on a couch. The couch. Oh, the couch. That hallowed space was Dad's throne, the very seat where all grievances resided. I picture myself curled there, listening to his judgmental breathing. I pictured the spreadsheet. I pictured the Nordstrom blazer receipt. Okay, I said again, my voice tiny, almost extinguished. Okay. Driving to the bakery after breakfast, that single word, okay, felt like a stone lodged in my mouth. I parked, walked inside, and stood behind the counter, watching the morning light slowly creep across the tile floor. My phone buzzed. Asterisk Sabrina. Can you send $300 for the car seats? Sale ends today. Asterisk I didn't answer. I simply placed my phone face down next to the register. A customer entered. I smiled on autopilot, filled a pastry box, and processed their payment. When they left, I picked up my phone again. Missed call. Mom, X1. Missed call. Dad, X2. Text Mom. Asterisk it's settled. Then start moving your things. We'll rent a storage unit if you insist, but you'll cover it. Asterisk I stared at those words for a very long time. Settled. As if someone had slammed a gavel. As if I wasn't a person in the room, but merely a line item. Something shifted within me. Not with a dramatic flourish. Not with a loud crash. Just a quiet, internal realignment. The real breaking point wasn't a shout. It was a Sunday lunch about a week later. Roast chicken, its aroma filling the air. The twins, mercifully, were sleeping. The house smelled of rosemary and baby shampoo. I brought a tart, because that's what I do when I don't know what else to do. Dad began, without preamble. We found a contractor. You'll write the check. We'll pay you back when the market stabilizes. How much? I asked, feigning ignorance, wanting to hear him say it. $40, he said. $42 with permits. $42,000, he added, as if I were slow. Mom chimed in. And while we're at it, Sabrina and the babies will move into your room this week. We need you to get the rest of your things out tonight. Your childhood stuff can be tossed. It's clutter. Tossed. My stuff is clutter. A dangerous calm settled over me. I repeated it in my head. Sabrina, oblivious, sipped her water. Chris, can you not make this dramatic? You don't even use the room. Then, as an afterthought, also daycare waitlist fees came through. Can you spot me $600? I'll send it back when I can. I looked around the table. The chicken steamed. The twins snuffled softly. Dad's knife clinked against his plate, a rhythmic, unsettling sound. I can't, I said. 3 faces lifted like periscopes surfacing. Dad frowned. Can't what? I can't write a check for $42,000. I can't pay daycare fees. I can't move my things out tonight so you can toss them in the garage. I can't do this anymore. Silence. The kind that screams, wait, what just happened? Mom recovered first. Don't be childish. We all sacrifice for family. I've sacrificed, I said, my voice steady, surprising even myself. $18, $542 since last May. 212 hours on your renovations. Free cakes, free deliveries, midnight calls, early drop-offs. I've given and given. And when I asked for one thing, to keep my room, you told me to agree or get out. Dad leaned back, arms crossed. You keeping score? You want to talk about scoreboards, son? I started keeping score because you were already keeping it for me. I countered. Every favor I do becomes proof I owe more. Sabrina rolled her eyes. This is about the room. Seriously, the babies need space. This isn't about revenge, I said, my voice low but firm. This is about closure. About boundaries. The words, strangely calm, resonated with me. I'm not funding your remodel. I'm not paying the daycare wait list. And I'm not giving up the last square foot in this house that still feels like mine. Dad's jaw worked. Then get out. Okay, I said, pushing my chair back. I will. Mom's mouth opened, then closed. Christopher, sit down. I stood. I'll be back tonight for my things. The rest is yours. The trophies, the posters. Keep them. Toss them. Your choice. Sabrina let out a short, brittle laugh. You're overreacting. I looked at her. You texted me 47 times last month asking for money. You even requested me for $8.99 because you forgot your coffee. I sent it. I always do. Not anymore. I walked to the door. Dad, his voice strained, said, "If you leave like this, don't come back." I paused, my hand on the doorknob. I'm tired of nodding. I turned, meeting Mom's eyes, then Sabrina's. "Good luck with the space." I left the tart on the counter. I didn't slam any doors. I just left. I drove to the bakery. I cleaned the espresso machine with a vengeance, as if it had personally offended me. Then I sat at my tiny office desk and opened Zillow, because I desperately needed to look at something that wasn't a family text thread. The listing had been up for 19 minutes. Charming 3-bedroom next door to quiet cul-de-sac. The photos revealed a sunlit kitchen, a backyard with a charmingly lopsided fence, and the exact view of my parents' living room window that I'd grown up staring through. The price made my stomach flip. Hi, yes, but not impossible. Not if I dipped into my expansion fund and braced myself for a tight year. My phone buzzed nonstop. Mom, X3B reasonable. Dad, X1 don't be stupid. Sabrina, X5 asterisk we need the money today. The sale ends at midnight. Asterisk I didn't answer. I called the agent instead. Hi, I own the bakery on Lennon. I'd like to make a cash offer on a house next door. He whistled. You move fast. Not really, I said. Just tired. The next 48 hours were a blur of signatures and wire transfers. I slept on the bakery couch between morning bakes and emails from the title company. I told exactly 2 people, my assistant manager, Jade, who hugged me and said, "About time," and my landlord, because I was month to month anyway. On Wednesday, the deed was recorded. I drove to the new place with a folding chair, a pillow, and a bag of groceries. The house smelled of pine sol and old dust. I opened the windows. I sat on the floor and ate a cold sandwich. When darkness fell, I texted a locksmith. At 7:02 a.m. on Thursday, I stood on my new front porch with a coffee and watched my parents' blinds twitch. I took a sip. I waited. The front door across the lawn opened like a jaw. Mom stepped out, still in her robe. "Christopher." "Morning," I said, as casual as could be. Dad appeared behind her, looking oddly diminished in the harsh morning light. "What you doing living?" Sabrina texted before she called. "Sabrina, is that a joke?" "Sabrina, tell me you didn't call." Sabrina declined. I locked my phone and just sat on my new step. It felt quiet. Not peaceful yet, but definitely quiet. By noon, the rumor machine was in full, glorious operation. Aunt Nora called to say, "Your mother is hysterical." Uncle Ted texted, "Bold move, kid," with a thumbs-up emoji that actually made me laugh despite myself. I turned my phone off and started building a bed frame. I'm not handy in a YouTube influencer way, but I can follow instructions. It felt good to create something that stayed exactly where I put it. That afternoon, Dad came over. "No hello. You think this is funny?" "No," I said. "I think it's close." "Close to what?" He scoffed. "Closure," I said. "And boundaries." "You bought a house despite your sister," he accused. "I bought a house because you told me to get out," I countered, meeting his gaze directly. "And because I can afford to live without being told my value every time you need a check." He looked past me into the empty living room. "So what? You just sit here and watch us." "No," I smiled. "I'll say good morning like neighbors do." He stared for a long time, then left, shaking his head. An hour later, Mom sent a paragraph about betrayal and family and how I should be ashamed. 5 minutes after that, a second text. "Asterisk, can you at least bring cinnamon rolls on Sunday? The twins love them." Asterisk, I didn't reply. I baked for my customers and slept like a rock. Friday, Sabrina stormed over, pushing the twin stroller like a battering ram. "You're insane," she declared, halfway up my driveway. "You embarrass Mom." "People are talking." "People always talk," I said calmly. "Half the time they're wrong. You could have just helped like you always do." "I did help," I said. "For years." She crossed her arms. "Dad says you're cutting us off." "I'm paying what I owe," I clarified. "Mortgage, utilities, groceries for me, payroll for my staff. That's the list." She stared at me as if I'd started speaking French. "So, you want help with daycare?" "No, the contractor." "No," she laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "Then, I hope you enjoy your empty house." "I will," I said. "You're welcome to visit," with a text first and no payment request attached. Her mouth opened and closed. She turned the stroller around. "You've changed." "Yeah," I said finally. "I have." Over the weekend, the calls stacked up. 61 missed. Mom left a voicemail, sobbing. Dad left one saying he was disappointed in the man I'd become. Sabrina sent a screenshot of her bank app, as if that was supposed to move me. I took a walk around the block. The air smelled of cut grass. A neighbor I didn't know waved. "New on the block?" they asked. "Sort of," I said. "Old, but new." On Sunday morning, I brewed coffee and stood on my porch at 7:30 a.m. The blinds across the way moved. The front door opened. Mom stepped out, her eyes red. Dad hovered behind her. Sabrina stood to the side, arms folded. I lifted my mug. "Good morning." No one answered. They went back inside. It kept going like that. Monday. "Good morning." Tuesday. "Good morning." Wednesday. Dad grunted. Thursday. Mom waved, but without truly meaning it. By the following week, their texts were shorter and angrier, then longer and guiltier, then quiet. Silence has a shape. It fits around you differently when you choose it. The bakery doubled as my anchor. People kept showing up for croissants and birthday cakes, blissfully unaware that I was practicing saying no in the kitchen between batches, out loud, to the rhythm of the mixer. No, no, no. It felt clumsy at first, like new shoes. Then it felt like standing up straight after years of hunching. Bills came. The mortgage was very real. I rearranged the expansion fund and shelved a shiny idea for spring. Jade, my assistant manager, took an extra shift. I cut one subscription I never used. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest. My numbers were my numbers, not a family group project. The last test came when Mom texted a photo of my old room. The cribs were pushed against the wall where my desk used to be. The posters were gone. The paint was that soft gray everyone uses when they want to call a color timeless. "Mom, see, they needed the space." I looked at the photo for a long time. I expected a stab of grief. Instead, I felt a small, clean click like a lock sliding shut. Asterisk me. "I'm glad they have what they need." "Mom, so you'll help now?" "Me. I already did." Asterisk weeks later, the morning routine became a comforting bit of theater. I'd step outside with my coffee. I'd watch their door. Sometimes I caught a glimpse of the twins, tiny hands reaching for air. Sometimes Dad picked up the paper and pretended not to see me. Sometimes Mom waved, embarrassed, as if the neighbor gossip pipeline was still running hot. One morning, I saw Sabrina loading the stroller into her car. She glanced over at me, hesitated, then called out, "Morning." "Morning," I said back. She walked to the edge of the lawn. "You really not mad?" I said. "Now I'm done." She kicked at a crack in the sidewalk. "It was never personal." "It was always personal," I said. "You just didn't have to feel it." She nodded once. "I'm figuring stuff out." "Me too," I said. She opened her mouth, then closed it. "The twins like your laugh," she said finally. "They laugh when they hear you on the phone outside." That threw me. "Tell them I said hi." "I will." She strapped the stroller in, then looked back. "You still making those cinnamon rolls every day?" 9 trays by 9 a.m., I said. She smiled. A small, genuine smile. "Maybe I'll buy some on Saturday." "Text first," I said. "I'll set them aside." After she drove off, I sat on my step. The sun was out, just enough to make the fence look less crooked. My house smelled like coffee and soap. My shop smelled like butter and sugar and a future I could actually name. For the first time in a very long time, my life felt like something I owned, not something I rented from other people's expectations. People like to frame choices as revenge or forgiveness, as if there are only 2 lanes and you must pick one. I don't want revenge. I don't need their apologies anymore. I needed the quiet click of a boundary locking into place. I needed to hear myself say no and have it stand. This isn't about revenge. This is about closure. Closure looks like a key on my own ring. It sounds like not explaining myself to a group chat. It tastes like coffee on a porch I pay for, while I tell my parents good morning, because I can be polite without being a doormat. I've stopped keeping the spreadsheet of what I'm owed versus what I gave. The numbers don't fix the past. They don't turn a family into something it wasn't. What they did do, for a while, was keep me stuck in a math problem where the solution was always to give more. Not anymore. I'm a pastry chef. I feed people. That's who I am. But I'm also a person who doesn't hand over the last piece of himself just because someone says they're entitled to it. I'll help when I wanna, not when fear or guilt tells me to. I'll bring cinnamon rolls because I like making them, not because my mother expects the box on her counter. The twins will grow. Sabrina will learn, or she won't. My parents will soften, or they won't. None of that is my job to manage. My job is to preheat the oven at 3:45 a.m., laminate dough with quiet music on, pay my staff on time, and lock my front door at night without checking my phone for a new request. I won't let them turn my life back into a group project. I won't nod just to keep the peace. I won't give a yes I can't afford. I own a tiny house and a tiny shop, and every single decision I made was to protect them. I'm not looking for applause. I'm just building a routine that isn't powered by panic. Good morning, I say, and I mean it. So what do you all think? Have you ever faced something like this in your own family where you finally had to draw a line? Tell me what you think. I really want to know.